Well, hello people, and welcome back to part 45 of Thessia, our Australian-inspired build. Hope you're having a wonderful day. We're back over in the downtown, the CBD today, to actually work on the west bank of the Thessia Bay Harbour to construct some inspired infrastructure taken from Fremantle, where our container port is actually taken from. But you might remember we looked across the water to see a sort of naval R&R port, and a bit of research. This place is actually, well, was a World War II submariners base in the Second World War, and has now been converted to a maritime museum, and also a kind of naval R&R stop as well. So lots of fun with some warships involved for the first time. Let's get stuck into this, shall we? So today's build, we're heading back to Fremantle, or I don't know if it's Fremantle because there's only one E. I'm sure the Australians in the chat can let us know. Either way, we're heading back to Fremantle Harbour, which is what Thessia's main container port was based off of. And if you remember that episode, if you watched it, we said kind of across the harbour was what looks to be an old naval base, so at least something affiliated with the Australian Navy. Now, from some research for today's episode, it would appear this was a submariners base that was mainly used during the Second World War as a base for US submarines to fight the Japanese. It has now turned into a maritime museum, but there's still a Navy presence here. There's some big warships, which I'm assuming are a part of the museum. There's also quite a lot of industrial spice going on. It looks as though this harbour is also used by kind of general cargo. There's a lot of cars over here. And there's also the HMAS Ovens as well, which is a big submarine on a dry dock. So there's a lot of different spices and inspirations behind here. So let's start out with the main sort of meat and potatoes of the build, if you like, which is going to be the Navy ships themselves. So there's a ton of ships on the workshop for this, which is very, very cool. We've even got an aircraft carrier as well, which I really want to get in here. Now, I know we might upset the Navy police with this, but it's okay. There's not that many Australian Navy assets. They tend to be sort of US Navy assets really on the workshop, but I can't not have an aircraft carrier here. They're so cool and they're so massive, and this is such a sweet asset. There's like phalanx cannons on the side of it, like laser guided precision missiles, like very cool stuff. So I think we're gonna have an aircraft carrier in, right? super cool. I suppose just the drive-by, just seeing something like that, right? Absolutely fantastic. We've also got some more, so we do actually have some Australian vessels here as well. This being one of them, the HMAS Anzac is an Australian vessel. So why don't we have this one down here? And fun fact, these things actually function as power plants as well. We've also got some tugboats, and then we've got a river class patrol ship as well. So we'll have this one. And how does that do? I think maybe we'll go for another one of the Anzac classes too, or something like that, as the general arrangement for our warships against the coast here. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that, to be honest. I think that's pretty cool. So these assets also come in vehicle form on the workshop as well. So you can have them driving around, essentially functioning as cargo ships, which is an awful lot of fun. So we'll come into here, and then we're going to use the vehicle selector mod, which we've used before. And I can have any vehicle, but I definitely want these two ships to leave from the ports. So now we should be able to see a naval vessel actually leaving the dock here, which will be really cool just from a visual point of view. Even though I realise we're doing this as kind of like a museum, so I can't imagine Navy ships come and go from this place all the time, but it's still pretty cool, so we'll be able to have that there. So alongside this, there's an awful lot of car parking space, which is, like I mentioned, it looks as though this harbour is not exclusively there for naval purposes. It looks as though there's a little bit of freight actually sharing this as well. So I want to line up with a large, poorly maintained car park, and we'll run this the length of the dock. At least maybe a little bit further down here as well. Let's drag this one down to about there. They might complain a little bit. Let's actually bring them just a touch further away. We can fill that gap with surface painter there, because I don't really want much grass here. It's very sort of concretey, as you would imagine. Really desperate to see one of those naval ships come in. Gonna be really cool. Is that one over there? Oh, there's regular freight trains out there, not freight trains, freight boats rather. Hopefully one will come in today. It'll be really cool. Desperate trying to see it. So I'm pretty happy with that. And then I think for navigating the rest of the harbour, which is going to be made up of, I think, warehouses and industrial evolution, just looking as to how this place kind of looks from the satellite imagery. We'll use our 4-lane industrial road to kind of create the backbone of the facility. And then let's actually give them a way in here. So we'll line this up with all the keys. We'll do the submarine dry dock as well. That's here in Australia too. So I think the most sensible point here is the rail crossing. Comes from the power plant area. And we'll have some nice kind of dry belt around here as well today to help start blending the facilities together, because we do have our power plant over here as well. And then of course the cargo container itself. Cool, so that gives people a way in. Might even put a toll booth around here as well. I guess we'll sort of see what happens. So we'll hook our road into the car parking spaces. And then I want to start looking at now some industrial evolution fusing, which will be our primary method of creating these kind of warehouse blocks that are present on the dock. So now we have that span in, let's grab some poorly maintained service road. We'll feed this pretty much along same axis as the keys. You kind of like look at the port from the bird's eye view. It's very much kind of like all layered back from the quay. So there's lots of car parking infrastructure, then warehouses, then more car parks, then more buildings. It's all kind of like tiered structure coming down like back into the inland, I guess. Let this one come up here, and then we can use this now to fuse together some of those industrial evolution stuff. So pretty sure it's these assets I want. And we'll piece them together. Now we are going to get some props there ourselves, which is handy. Now we are going to have an issue here with spawn points, but we can just use the mod to fix that. And then just to bulk this warehouse out, we'll grab all 3 of them, spin them around, and then just merge them in so we get that kind of double warehouse effect, right? And then with our building spawn points mod, which is in our mod list down below, then we can just drag them down to a road, and what this means is that they will still receive their goods deliveries, their exports, their servicing from police and fire and whatnot, will all just land on this road down here. Also turned weather back on today as well, but we not had a little bit of rain in Thessia for a while, have we? And it's now starting to rain as well, which is nice. So happy to see that. Cool. And those assets themselves already come with a little bit of prop work as well, which is always nice. So that's going to help us with our detailing come the end of the build. Let's just make sure those buildings are flush together. Now, because it looks like this dock is not exclusively used by the Australian Navy, I'd love to have an actual import-export function here, for which I wouldn't mind just using another cargo harbour. If we were to have this here, I realise we'd have to move the aircraft carrier. Or maybe even... maybe delete this boat for right now, we'll move this one down. And we'll have our aircraft carrier here, outside the larger warehouse. Like that. Really hope I don't upset the Navy police today. I know this is going to be probably not massively accurate, but hopefully it's still believable enough. Cool. Let's make sure we are at the same height here as well. Also grab those key nodes. Make sure they're the same height as our road. And I actually think it's probably going to be best off with this one, isn't it? So let's actually use vehicle selector here. We will remove that vehicle from the pool. And then we'll say from this cargo harbour, we'll do vehicle selector and say that only this Anzac ship can come in here. Which will then give the impression of naval ships actually leaving this yard, hopefully, once they do eventually come in. Are we having power issues in Thessia? We are. Is that a budget slider issue, I wonder? It is indeed. Time to increase the power budget, it looks like. Everyone alright? Yeah, there we go. We're good. So as we could see on those Google Earth shots, there's enormous amounts of cars here, which I'm guessing is some sort of car import function that happens over here. So I'm definitely down for having this as part of the build as well. So let's arrange this big parking lot road, which we'll use to help store a lot of those cars. And we'll also provide a connection into the port here as well. Maybe even want to network multi-unlock this network too. And then obviously delete those just for right now. And then we'll draw that back in. Just so it's all the same network. And relock that segment again. Have that connect into there. And then down into here as well. Which, just to help those nodes breathe a little bit more, I think we're just gonna move it up a touch, something like that. Send it into there. So from what I see Google Earth, it's just rows and rows and rows of white cars. Now we do have this Grand Dodge Caravan, so I think what we will do is stick him on the prop line tool. They're much closer than that, maybe 5 meters with a 90-degree rotation. Yeah, they're not that close. Let's do 7. Yeah, so it's pretty much that. So let's just have a little impression of what this is going to look like one day. Well, from the end of the detail and time lapse, at least. So we'll have just tons of imported cars. Now, I'm not really looking to have the car parking spaces on here. It's really just that kind of flat tarmac surface I'm looking for. Just double up a couple of layers, and then we'll just mass copy them. And then once we're in, usually with very heavy prop line tool work, we like to kind of come in and sort of, you know, humanize the line a little bit by making them not so rigid, but here they are very much in a perfect line, so prop line tool will be fine for that. And then just remove a few from the fleet so it's not all perfectly rigid. Otherwise, that's kind of what we see. It's just kind of a car import place here. Followed by more large industrial sort of warehouse infrastructure. So I think we'll, at this point, grab a large warehouse and we'll have this sat. Is it this way here, I think? Something like that. Now, we could also have some rail warehouses here as well, because we do have access to a rail line. Now, I don't think we're going to come down here. I think we mentioned last episode I'm not planning to really build in this part of Thessia. Now, you guys said this could just be like a massive national park, which I think we'll definitely do. Something over here anyway, maybe some just big nature park build at some point. We'll have to go have a look at some Australian nature reserves. So I don't really want too much large infrastructure heading down out this way, so I think kind of a nice way to round out civilization, if you like, might be with some cargo train yards using those warehouses from the update. So let's have a look at this one here. Yeah, so why don't we give functionality to this one? Let's have it almost welded onto the back of that one, and we use network multi unlock as well to get rid of that segment. And then we'll grab ourselves some rail. This can come straight out of here. I guess we'll just feed it straight down, and then find a happy connection for it to come in like that. And then we'll have a little bit of network multi-slope from here up to here. Bring that down to 1.6. That shouldn't upset the train, please, I don't think. That should be alright. And then we'll relock the segment at the bottom. Wonderful. And then we need to give road connection this one as well. Not like that though. Let's try that again. And we can also do the same out here as well. What we will do here though is just budge this one along a little bit. There we go. And then we can bring that road in. So I don't want to be hitting that guideline just yet. I'd rather have the road here, and then we use node control to shift it back into position. That gives road connection for the warehouse. Let's tell them what to store. Is the factories over here? We do have stuff at the electronics factory. We've got a ton of commercial zone goods being stored here. Fish, metal, etc. That's because that's being made at the road to road kiln, isn't it? Is there anything we can produce or store? We put a factory in the power plant. I don't think we did we? Oh, yeah, this is just storing ore over here. So I think for right now, we'll just get these guys to store commercial zone goods. We may do some metal processing at a later date. We'll just sort of wait and see what happens, I think. But either way, that gives us our chunkier warehouse sort of infrastructure that we see around this port, which kind of satisfies the vibe I wanted to create with, you know, it's not just sort of navy facility here. There is obviously some sort of import function happening as well, if not sort of storage for import. It's a very unique place, the Fremantle Harbour. There's lots of different things going on around here. Cool. I think we'll also have a breakwater come out into the ocean here as well to round out the port. We'll sort of see what happens with it. Cool, this is looking good. We got some decals over here. So the next thing we also see in Google Earth is the submarine dry dock, which is a very cool, unique bit of infrastructure. So I really want to use the keys to help form this. So first of all, I want to add some nodes into the key. Actually, maybe that segment right there actually might be sort of perfect for creating a submarine dry dock. But let's have a little look. Let's bring them in. We'll go for... Yeah, they are quite deep. Then again, how long is our submarine prop? Let's actually get that down first, because that's going to be obviously the leading thing in the build, isn't it? So we'll have that there. Don't mind having two here, I suppose. We have one there. Another one there. What's this prop called? The USS Permit. Cool. But those are submarines, right? They're pretty cool. We can have them here. It's going to be a very visual, sort of distinctive visual of the build, isn't it? It's going to be a super distinctive visual of the build. So when we have that in, we will bring our dry dock around to about there. Before we do that, actually. So before we draw the docks in, we actually want to terraform the land down a little bit first. To something to that effect. Just so it's slightly lower, that's why it's going to help the keys align a little bit better. So that layer, we're talking like 2 or 3 contour lines, nothing much more than that. Bring that up. Have that there, I think. So that water should dissipate away. And once it has, our keys should now play a little bit of a fairer game. Just like that. So let's bring these guys down so they're sat on the floor of the dry dock, something like that. To also kind of hammer home the dry dock vibe, we could also bring the shipyard factory over here as well, which we might do. We'll sort of see what happens around this place. Oh look, there's the boat. There's the cargo boat. Look at that. Absolutely fantastic. Let's follow this. So this is a cargo ship. We're now going to have military vessels moving around the Thessia Bay Harbour, which is so cool. That's awesome. We need to get into using more custom vehicles. Oh, it's even got the kangaroo in it as well, hasn't it? Absolutely delicious. So good we managed to find some Australian vessels, isn't it? Absolutely awesome. Great work as well. Look at the models on these. Just fantastic. Sailing past the Thessian Parliament there as well. It's very appropriate, isn't it? There's also a war memorial there too on the coast we did in a live stream. Very, very nice. Very cool. Oh, I love that. That is the best bit of the episode, everyone. It's all downhill from here. Really cool. That has made my week right there. Wonderful. So, we have this here. So, of course, the bottom of the dry dock is not grass. It is very much concrete, and it definitely kind of has like a ramp as well. Now, to showcase that, we could do something with a key. Now, this is going to be a little bit experimental, so let's see what happens. If we were to stretch this out to, say, 500%, that's pretty wide, isn't it? And how about the other end as well? Let's do that too. Let's go to 500, so we get this thick boy key, right? It's absolutely massive. It's huge. It's enormous. Now, it is going to mess with our terrain a little bit, but I think I can deal with that. So I want this to come down onto the floor and to the edge of this key. And then with this end here, I want this to come down. And then I want it to come down into the earth. Or down into the sea, rather. Yeah, so to get that in, just because it's a key, it really affects just the terraforming around it. So I don't think we can do that without facing severe terraforming problems. So the alternative to that would be to use one of our terraforming networks that we have. Now we use these to build the water suburb over here. Something that we did ages ago. So I'm thinking if we have them come down here, and then really I just want to grab the nodes here. I want to bring this node back up. And then this node here. I'm going to stretch that out into the water a bit more, and then bring it up so it's like, when all the water goes away, we can create that slope. So I wouldn't mind a little bit of water just coming up here. That's kind of what we can see in the dry dock in Google Earth anyway. So I just want to wait and manipulate it as much as I can. So then once I've got a slight slope in the dock back into the sea, we can just surface paint this, and thankfully this happens to be right on the surface painter axis where it plays straight. I'll either go into there and we'll get some rock decals and basically just some slime so this isn't so clean, because it obviously wouldn't be. And then a little bit of concrete under the sea there as well, so it looks like the dry dock actually extends underneath. And then we'll do a little bit of soften here, just to blend that network back into the seabed. It is actually a ramp under the water. And then once that terraforming stabilizes again from the water, the dry dock should remain mostly dry. Go ahead and get some of those decals as well, see what we can actually do with this. We'll get quite a few scuff marks around them with it, just sort of give it a general roughing up. And then I reckon with some sort of mud decals around here as well, just to indicate the passage of sludge and rot and everything that flows into the dry dock around the submarines. You can have that there. And just some general scuffing up. It'd be good if we could get some, it's essentially almost sort of sea and slime is what I'm after here. Yeah, we can almost blend in some of the beam decals actually to give the impression of sort of moss and whatnot that started to develop algae on the bottom of the dry dock. Just a combination of various theme decals I think will do us a job around there. We can also see in Google Earth as well, there is a number of these little crane props that we've used before. I guess we'll search for it, won't we? Fantastic. We'll just look at that. Functional naval yardage. Very nice indeed, that, isn't it? Things we love to see. But there we go. Don't massively hate that. The combination really helps sort of create a bit of a moss there, doesn't it? Which we can definitely see in Google Earth as well. And then we also want to grab a crane as well, because there's quite a few cranes knocking around here. We'll have one here. It looks like there's at least 3 I can see on the satellite imagery. So we'll have that there. Shame the loaded model on those submarine props is really low. They kind of turn into potatoes if you move even just a tiny bit away from them, which is a little bit of a shame. So we can still make do with them, right? It'll still be okay. So I did also mention the factory as well, didn't I? With, oh, the shipyard factory is what it's called, isn't it? Which does want plain timber, plastic, glass, and metal in order for it to function. Oh, it looks like it actually sits perfectly on that road there, doesn't it? Make this part of our dry dock too. Wouldn't even mind having this one next door, actually, if we were to not have it here. Let's trim back a little bit of length this car park over this side. And then we'll have our dry dock here. Now, how far can I pull that inland? That's actually quite interesting, that, isn't it? If you pull it in, you do actually get the full-on dry dock. I wouldn't actually mind having that totally function like that. How about up to there? And then we can all make it look as though the key is a little bit of, I guess a lock would be the term for that, wouldn't it? It's not really a dam, is it? It's definitely like a lock gate, I think. And that way we can blend it in with the dry dock here where the submarines are, which leads it to be a little bit more convincing, I think, doesn't it? I'm definitely not against that. I think I'd actually be quite happy with that, I think. And then again, around this is just a ton of industrial sheds and warehouses. So we don't currently have forestry in Thessia, do we? If we do, it's probably in Valkyrie, I can't remember. Ages ago now. Yes, we do. Are you producing plain timber over here, though? Can't remember if you are or not. Got paper. Yeah, there is plain timber coming out here. Do you guys not get enough wood? You should be. There's sapling fields right here that are feeding you. You should be okay. But, yes, at least we are producing plain timber. Glass and metal. So there's an enormous amount of metal production going on because we've got the rotary kiln here. And then there's just pure metal stored up in these warehouses over here. Plus a ton of ore storage knocking about here as well. So metal is taken care of, but we should be able to produce our own glass. Which we will by having this ore district extend over this way. Also just realised there's also a ton of ore under here as well, so we could do what we did with the operational crane in the cargo harbour. These guys are actually functioning as ore mines to keep them supplied. So in order to get glass over here, I think we will actually drop in a fiberglass plant as part of the sort of generic industrial infrastructure that lies over here. And maybe not even actually being averse to blending it in to the dry dock. I don't think I can hate that at all. Grab this one here. How about we just have this facing at the edge of the dock over this way, we'll replace it. Though it's not in the industrial area. Drag it out this way. There's also some other assets we can use from the ore production stuff as well that look nice over here. Things like the ore maintenance building. I just want kind of a generic, chunky industrial infrastructure now to fill this big space in the middle with lots of car parking kind of woven between it, essentially. Well, we never connected this in either, did we? Let's do this. We'll have that here. And let's use a little bit of node controller. And then I just want to have this one shift off a little bit to the left. And let's do a touch of offset for everyone as well. Widen out the junction here. And then we'll also connect this into the kind of wider industrial space that'll develop around the back of this now as well. Start to connect all the frames, and then, just like I mentioned earlier, everything's just kind of layered back to the center. So lots of warehouse detailing to do during the time lapse, which, speaking of, does now feel like a good place for it. We've got the skeleton frame of a very unusual building. It's always fun trying to translate that real world infrastructure into city skylines, and also trying to make it functional as well. You know, I want the blended industry DLC buildings here to be contributing to the Thessian economy as much as possible. Also, like, we've got some clouds as well. Bit of a grim day in Thessia today. Been very sunny for a long time. So nice to have a bit of rain. But either way, let's go and do some detailing. Lots of industrial detailing to do today, and some very unusual stuff as well. So we'll see how it turns out, hopefully without upsetting the Navy, please. But either way, let's go ahead and detail the Thessia Submariner and Naval Museum, and then we'll be right back. little review of what's happened around the now named Dolphin Harbour, which has been named by our beautiful YouTube member and Tier 3 Patreon Josh, who is also in the US Coast Guard. So he's given this build his seal of approval. Well, the Dolphin comes from the Submariner's insignia, apparently. So we'll come down into the port where we use some of Clue's IMT networks to give ourselves a border. And we'll come in where we've dropped in lots of car parking. Police station as a bit of an entrance into the area with more parking around it. This place is just absolutely saturated with car parks. And then we've got some police props out the front here too. And then we'll come into the dry dock itself where we've got lots of industrial evolution prop work. Some of the Maersk shipping containers as well, alongside lots of cranes. And that fiberglass plant sits in really nicely, doesn't it? Cracked open some of the network fencing around it using network multi-tool, which has now been fleshed out with various different industrial props, bins, trucks and trailers and whatnot. All things we can see in the satellite imagery of Google Earth. And then more sort of similar blending of industrial evolution assets in around the dry dock. We do have, of course, ships being built here, which is really nice to have kind of a functioning dry dock next to the sort of mock submarine one, which turned out pretty nicely. I think I'm pretty happy with it. Especially kind of the sort of growth of moss and sort of general dirt on the bottom of the dock before they do slide off down into the ocean, of course. But really happy with how it turned out. Lots more container work around here as well, with scuff decals where you'd expect them in and around our main ships. Ended up switching the orientation of the larger warships around, so the aircraft carrier sits within the middle with, again, lots of car parking in front of it. We also actually switched up the RDC building with the sort of larger natural disaster response unit, which is such a naval base looking asset, isn't it, this one? Especially around the front of it where we've got the stairs. So happy to have this in, and also a little pathway through here too, and more sort of helipads and decals, which the base would certainly have, you would imagine anyway, at least some sort of air presence around here. So happy to blend this asset into the base as well. And then we'll come down over here. There's just more sort of some older buildings as well, because actually you can jump into the street view in this port. And there's some distinctly older looking buildings. It's not all sort of endless corrugated sheds that you can see in Google Earth. Some of them are a little bit older looking. We've got some of the red brick in here and just expanded patterns off with fencing. Props and whatnot, all our usual sort of industrial sort of spices that we piece together when we come into these things. Ended up moving these sort of fused sheds that we had initially over by the waterfront, and then out over here just to fill a little bit of space with some more fusing as well. Dropped in some of the workers' barracks from the ore industry stuff, alongside a police helicopter depot. And we've also got a bus station over here as well. Just because there's quite clearly some sort of vehicle storage going on in this port, so I wanted to replicate that over here as well. We do have those mass rows of vehicles at the foot of the port here. You'll see they're actually slightly floating there, aren't they? They just need bringing down a little bit, but that's okay. We'll get to that. Also really cool as well, isn't it? Seeing sort of ships pouring in and out of the harbour now. This whole industrial part of Thessia is really starting to piece together, I think. Yeah, so just wanted to respect the vehicle storage vibe here with the bus depot and lots of overcharged express buses, of course, courtesy of Blue Thunder, which he made us for Navaria, which was very nice of him. Getting used out of those props still, all these years later. We did also download a couple of, I know these are US Navy helicopters, but they do come actually with the warships here, kind of sat on the back. So I wanted to create a bit more of a helicopter yard depot where we got some props to accompany them. And after showing this build to Josh, after gaining his advice and sort of wondering what this place was, he said this definitely looks more like the place where the warships are resupplying at the Submariner dry dock rather than being permanently based here. So I guess we can go with a kind of Submariner and Navy museum resupply dock, I guess, is what this build really qualifies as, rather than an outright Navy base. Which isn't an outright Navy base anyway. We did look at some in Australia, particularly around Garden Island is a major one. Even looking at the Australian Navy website as well, there's quite a few of them. But I'm really happy with this fusing, especially kind of seeing those larger warships in the background of the build there. And of course, the grander scheme of the city as well, as this area continues to become very heavily industrialized. And one day we will have our airport over here as well. But otherwise, guys, that is going to do it for today. Let's thank you all so much for watching. We've enjoyed a very unique build, definitely one of the most unique we've done in Thessia, I think, and a bit of a combination of different ideas as well. Of course, we've got the dry docks over on the left-hand side of the port, also a bit of a navy presence here as well. So it's kind of a combination of stuff we see in Fremantle Harbour and a little bit of Garden Island in there as well. But hopefully it's not massively offended the navy police either way. It's certainly definitely a unique port build, isn't it? Massive shout out as always to all the patrons supporting the channel. If you are interested in getting a little bit further involved with that support, there are links down to Instant Gaming and Patreon below, where there's a Patreon exclusive podcast, which there's 10 episodes available now for you to listen back to at your convenience, including interviews with Biffa, a few candies, City Planner players, and just some general chats with me on there as well. Don't forget to check out Instant Gaming, always a good deal to be had, and it all helps support the videos. That if you've reached this point in the video, I'm assuming you're enjoying them. So consider supporting the channel, it all helps keep the videos going. Otherwise, please do enjoy the cinematics from today's build, but I'll shut up and leave it there. Let's thank you all so much for watching. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day.